Hello. We have a question from Mastermind Chat that I'm going to read to you. It's from Dallas No Malice. Hello, Masterminds. I'm finding it difficult to find my true passion. This is most likely due to my methodology or maybe the way I'm thinking about it. I have been trying to force myself to think about an answer, but I have a strong feeling this is the wrong way to go about this. I would love to get perspective or insights on methodology on finding my purpose. The current feeling is that I'm overthinking and overanalyzing. Thank you for all the time that you spend in this chat. Great. So this is a question that I get often enough that I definitely want to talk about it, and that's about finding passion and purpose. I'm going to read you an excerpt from a book called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, which is a book by Suzuki, one of the famous Zen masters. And this is a section called Limiting Your Activity. You may think that if there is no purpose or no goal in our practice, we will not know what to do, but there is a way. The way to practice without having any goal is to limit your activity or be concentrated on what you're doing in this moment. Instead of having some particular object in mind, you should limit your activity instead. When your mind is wandering about elsewhere, you have no chance to express yourself. But if you limit your activity to what you can do just now in this moment, then you express yourself fully in your true nature. This is our way. When we practice Zazen, that's meditation, we limit our activity to the smallest extent. Keeping the right posture only and being concentrated on sitting is how we express universal nature. So instead of having some object of worship, we just concentrate on the activity of what we are doing in each moment. When you bow, you just bow. When you sit, you only sit. When you eat, you just eat. If you do this, universal nature is there. In Japanese, we call this one-act samadhi, or one practice. So why do I bring up this passage? I was thinking about this passage when I read this. The thing that Dallas says in their message that I think is most telling is, I've been trying to force myself to think and find an answer, but I have a strong feeling this is the wrong way to go about this. So you have a strong feeling that that is the wrong way to go about it because that feeling is correct. That is the wrong way to go about it. And when I speak of limiting your activity when trying to find your passion or trying to find something that you want to do, this is counterintuitive to how you are thinking about it and how you think the mind works. We think that if we try to force our way towards an objective or try to find an answer, then that answer is going to come to us. But in reality, creating space for those kind of answers is actually, like, when it comes to these like larger sort of spiritual questions, like finding your passion or finding motivation to do something. A lot of people say, oh, like, I don't have any motivation to start a business, or I'm losing motivation to start my business. The what your mind does is your mind like centralizes that problem and says, okay, I'm going to like force myself to become more interested. I'll force myself to go to the gym. I'll force myself to do new exercises or to do new things in my business. And actually, what you need to do is limit your activity. It's the exact opposite of forcing. You have to step back and you have to create space. And what do I mean by create space? This is a really difficult and kind of esoteric concept. Creating space means that you have to almost deliberately allow yourself to not participate in the actual activity of what you're after. So in the case of finding a passion, you just don't think about that at all. And instead, you go try to be as pure in the moment of the things that you are doing as possible. And what you'll find is that everything you try, you'll have a better relationship with and more passion to than you would if you were just trying to force yourself to decide if you like these things or if this is the thing you should do for forever for your career. Something like passion is a muse. It's an artistic concept. It's a creative concept. It's out there. It's not something you can't go onto the floor and start doing carpentry and force yourself to try to be like think about once you add all the stuff up, like, you're like, okay, well, could this be a business? Could I make money off of this? Is this something I could get customers for? Could I do this for 20 years? Your brain is like going to take all of that and it's going to paralyze you absolutely by analysis. Whereas if you just sit in that moment, like Suzuki says, and you just experience the moment as it's meant to be experienced, then every activity you do will either fill you with passion or it won't. And once you can actually distill things down to that simplistic of a concept, and it really is that simple. It really is that simple. Either things fill you with passion or they don't. People, as Marie Kondo would say, things spark joy or they don't. There's no in between on this. It's very simple to feel in a moment that something is going to inspire you or something's going to make you feel passionate, or you or it doesn't. And all the complication comes from the projecting into the future and the past of all of our regrets and our failures and everything, and the future of all the possibilities and the difficulty and potential challenges. That is where the mind messes shit up. That's where everything gets complicated. It's not complicated. Passion is not complicated. Passion is very easy. And once you just sit in the moment of something, you can start to identify the kind of person that you are. So for me, for example, when I started to create space for my passions, I found that I love reading. I found that I love philosophy. I love jujitsu. I love hot yoga. I love dancing. Right? There's so many different passions that come into your life that you should have the problem of having too many passions. If you've created space and you've allowed the world to sort of interact with you instead of you just like forcing yourself onto the world, then you start to experience all of the real beauty of these things and get the passion of it. Let me make a couple more like assumptions, and this is probably relevant to a lot of people in this audience. You're 25, as you say in Dallas says he's 25, married with a son, and working on finishing school. So many of you are young males below the age of 35. This segment is particularly for you. You have a very quest-based mindset on going out into the world, because that is very much the animus personality. Is I want to go out into the world, I want to conquer, I want to change, I want to lead, I want to do things. It's a natural thing for some extent to everybody, but particularly people that are within that age group, that male age group, that desire to thrust into the world and make change. You have so much time. When you're 25, if you do nothing but make mistakes for the next 5 years, you will be completely fine. 30 is still the absolute beginning of your life. So the first thing that I began to discuss in this video for everyone was the idea that you need to create space. The second thing is that you have to justify that logically. That space has to be created. You have to know that you're not on a time scale, that there's not this sense of urgency is manufactured by society and by all your friends and your peer groups to tell you that you have to do these things, you have to focus on these things immediately. This is not the case. You have so much time. Even if you are in your 40s, you could begin an entirely new life. There are so many people who have started a sport, who have started a business and sold it. You can't limit yourself by these beliefs that you have to accomplish these things in these timeframes. Like, this is all just totally arbitrary, right? You're floating on a rock, spinning millions of miles an hour in space, and this is your one chance in 54 billion years to experience something subjectively, whatever this is, right? And to think that you can't take that day by day to just experience it, instead of going for these like super arbitrary goals, like I need to make more money, I need to get a career because somebody says I do, I have to find this passion, I have to be this passionate person. You don't have to be anything except what you are in your exact moment right now. All that is bullshit, man. Like you have to step back from that. You have to understand that it's that mindset, it's that forcing, it's that overthinking that is causing that problem. You actually have to step back completely from this process and totally let the work be done for you. It's a really hard concept for people to figure out, because they think that it's like a spiritual thing. They think that it's like a woo-woo, like the universe is working for you thing. It's not really that, right? It's just that your mind, there's an unconscious part of your mind that works on problems outside of your conscious mind. And it's limited by stress, by the amount of BS that you have to worry about on a daily basis, by your overtraining or your fatigue, by the stress protocols in your life. The more that you eliminate those things, the more space you create for that unconscious mind to create ideas. This is and to not only to create ideas, but also to experience ideas. And this is also why when you like a lot of very famous mathematicians will write down an entire problem on a notepad, they'll put it on their bed, like next to their bed, and they'll fall asleep. They'll wake up with like halfway to an answer or an answer. That happens all the time. This is actually a technique that a lot of entrepreneurs, including myself, use, where I will go to sleep with a very tough question. I'll just be like, okay, how do I solve this particular sales process in my company or something like that, and I'll go to sleep with it. And a lot of times I'll wake up with just a better answer. That's an example of creating space. You let the problem go, and it's still there. Maybe it's in like a document. So I have a lot of problems that I'll put in documents. where I have week goals, month goals, and 6-month goals, and I don't go any longer than that. I have like a multi-year vision, but it's very, very vague. Again, because I'm actually trying to prevent overanalyzing and overthinking. So if I have a very vague goal that I want to set out for in a month, then I will put that on a piece of paper, and then I will let it go, except when I just remember that that's there, and create space for it. And there's a mental process of creating space for it. And then I'll go do stuff like yoga. I'll meditate every day. I'll read books like the one that I read you. I'll go exercise. I'll go do everything but that. And or the most direct interaction with that process I might do is asking indirect questions like, what are the things in my life right now that are really providing passion and value to me and things that I really enjoy, right? Like, well, I might ask myself that question. There's actually a video on this Patreon that is 2080 somewhere. You can find it. That is how I do 2080 analysis. Might even be on public YouTube at this point, actually. And you might find that process very valuable as a process of exploring more about yourself. But at 25 years old, and even for anybody else that's listening to this, that's plus 10 years north of that, you have so much time. You could develop an entire new skill set, a completely different perspective. You could be a different person. You could literally just like go live in a different place and be a completely different person. Your life would be 5 years is enough to indistinguishably change your life from what it was before, and have nothing be similar if you want it to be. So part of this is understanding how to create space to allow these ideas and these new concepts. Part of it is also coming to terms with that rationally and understanding that you actually physically have that time. This is not just a spiritual concept that I'm telling you. You physically have that time. In 5 years, you're 30. That's nothing, right? I sold CLG at 32, something like that, or something, somewhere around there, right? And I didn't really get started on my career until I was like 27 or 28, and I'm early. I was like super early. That was the culmination of a bunch of skill sets that I built for years before. I would feel super comfortable getting to 40 years old and completely resetting like someone just tells me, okay, you're a new colonist on this world and you have no skills. You've got to learn. But if I have the drive that I have right now, I could pick myself back up and be there in a matter of a couple of years, no problem. Like, I'm super confident in that. And the point that I would start to get a little bit worried is like 60. 60 would be the point where I'd be like, okay, I need to start thinking a little bit more about like how I'm going to rest and and my energy levels. And I need to be worried about that. 40, 50 years old, you still have, if you're following good health protocols, you're completely fine. You have so much time to do these things. So I would say, really step back and start to think about how you can create space, particularly focus on activities that allow space creation. So I think that like yoga is fantastic for this. Meditation is phenomenal. Meditation groups are phenomenal. Reading, experiencing new things. So any kind of hobbies, go axe throwing, right? Go ziplining, go kayaking, all these things, right? And you might not think that kayaking will lead to your career, right? Like that it has nothing to do with it, that learning how to garden plants will lead to your career. And I am here to tell you that it is exactly what will lead to what you are doing. So much of who I am today has been defined by my hobbies and practices that I've gone to go pursue, that I can give you a list of a million different things I've tried that didn't pick up, right? Racquetball, tennis, basketball. There's a ton of different things I did in my life that I just showed up for a class and I wasn't into it. It didn't resonate with me. It didn't create that space in me. And then one day in Los Angeles, I showed up for a hot yoga class and I can't get enough of it. I go every single day. COVID was one of the most difficult things for me only because I couldn't go to hot yoga and experience that. You may go to hot yoga and hate it. Who knows, right? But the fact is you find that passion by doing and by creating space for it. So I hope that's some thoughts for Dallas here in the Mastermind chat and for everybody that listened to this video. I hope this was helpful and I appreciate you watching it.